Coming hot off of NES, Konami, one of the kings of video games on the Super Nintendo, and we're going to rank all of them in this video. Well, I say all of them, I'm pretty sure this is every Konami game. I might be missing one or two off the list. If I am, please call me out in the comments. How are you feeling? You got John Riggs here. Thank you so much for watching. By watching and simply by hitting the subscribe button, you are supporting the channel more than you know. If you want to support it even further, I sell my homebrews on my website. I wrote a book about breakfast cereal of the 80s and 90s, and I sell my oddly specific air fresheners. Like this one that smells like your grandma's house. It's freshly baked cookies, butterscotch candies, and a freshly mopped floor. And I just restocked my 80s arcade ones that smells like wood paneling, menthol cigarettes, used gum, and spilt Coke. Check out my link in the description below. Thank you so much. The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Have you played this on the Super Nintendo? Oh my goodness, the team on this game did themselves proud with the animation. The Batman games I've mentioned in the past are either really good or really bad. And this Batman game, The Adventures of Batman and Robin on the Super Nintendo, very good. One of the best. Just the animation is fantastic. I was such a big fan of the cartoon series. And of course, in playing the game, you run into the famous villains from the cartoon series. I think it's wonderful. I think it's amazing. I'm giving it an A. I love it. We have the Animaniacs for the Super Nintendo. Have you played the Animaniacs on the Super Nintendo? Well, the cartoon was amazing. I absolutely loved the cartoon. And this one plays like it should. Could have gone any direction, and it went the direction it did, and it's probably the best idea for it. Just the facial expressions of the characters of Yakko, Wacko, and Dot. When you're jumping, when you're climbing on top of each other, when you're trying to avoid getting caught by the security guy and stuff like that too. It's a decent game. It's okay. It's worth looking at for a moment. I'm giving it a B. I wish it was more going on with this game. I would have loved to have seen a Simpsons-style beat-em-up with this game. Not that I was asking for it, and not that anybody demanded that, but I think that would have been amazing for a game like Animaniacs. Axlay is one of the most impressive looking Super Nintendo games, I think. It's a vertical shooter as well as a horizontal shooter. The first stage and then the alternating stages is that horizontal shooter, but it just has that kind of rotating, rounded, how it looks. It blew my mind the first time I saw it. I'm like, this is insane. Difficult game this one is. I've never beaten it all the way through. I've gotten close. I've gotten really far, but man, because you have like the different weapons you can choose from and cycle through them and everything. And then the horizontal stages are still really good. The whole game could have been one or the other, but they made it both. And that's Axlay in a nutshell. I'm giving it an A. I almost gave it a B just because of how difficult it is, but the difficulty is my own fault. It shouldn't be the fault of the video game, it's the fault of me. I'm giving it an A. I think it's one of the best shooters on the Super Nintendo. We have Batman Returns. Batman Returns came out based on the movie. Not bad. This one is a beat 'em up. I like the fact that you can actually take the enemies and chuck them into the wall behind you and smash glass, and that part's always fun for me. Other than that, it is just kind of again, with these beat 'em ups, sometimes they're just kind of the same thing over and over again. It gets kind of monotonous. It's good, I just wish it was better. I'm giving this one a C, only because I do like this game quite a bit. But man, you almost get bored after a while. You just get to the point where it's like, I'm just gonna keep playing it as a chore just to see it through. It's really good though, but I'm still giving it a C. If that doesn't make any sense to you, you're not alone. Biker Mice from Mars. You ever watch this? You ever play this? Well, it plays like, I don't know, there's a couple of racing games, a little bit like an RC Pro-Am. I guess you could put rock and roll racing in there somewhere too. Biker Mice from Mars. It's literally that. I don't know if they were just stretching for something. It's like, well, we already have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Why don't we have Biker Mice from Mars? I don't know how they came up with this idea, but the game's pretty decent. I mean, if you like racing games, it has its own thing going on for itself. I'll give it a B. Castlevania Dracula X. We'll talk about this one first because I'm kind of going alphabetical. Castlevania Dracula X. This is an excellent game. Yes, it's not the game for the Turbo Duo or TurboGrafx CD. Or PC Engine CD, I guess, technically. Yes, it's not that, but this is a very good port of that. It's a little watered down. I know diehard fans of TurboGrafx 16 will say it's way watered down. I don't see it that way. I think it's still really good. It's just not exactly the same as that, but if you never played that version, you'll be like, wow, this is like one of the best Castlevania games, and I love the soundtrack to it, and I love what's going on with this game. Yes, it is missing some of the elements of the Turbo CD, but, you know, you get what you get. I'll give it an A. It's really good. We have Contra 3 The Alien War. Do you ever play Contra 3 The Alien War? I loved the fact that you could have two guns at once. I loved the fact that you could grab the spread and then reserve it for when you need it. That way, if you die, you still have it when you come back to life. And then on the other side, you can have your laser, or you can have your machine gun, or whatever it is. And then you hold L and R, or whatever it is, and you have both guns. You can spin around and shoot both of them at the same time. Oh, it was the best. It was the best. And it was also that cool time with Super Nintendo where it's like, ooh, what Mode 7 are we going to see in this game? And you see like the airplane flying in and dropping the napalm or whatever it is. Oh man, what a great game. I'll give it an A. This is a super hard game. This game has more levels than it should. I've only beaten it with a Game Genie just because I wanted to see what it was like to go through the game. And I was like, man, there's still more levels in this game? There's no way I could do this. And maybe you have. If you've beaten it without using a Game Genie or anything, more power to you. I never could. Boy, I tried. Gradius 3 is another one that came out. This is that time where it's like, whatever happened to Gradius 2? Like, is Life Force Gradius 2? I didn't know there was a Gradius 2 for the Famicom, but I'm not complaining about Gradius 3. I love the Gradius games. I love Life Force, and Gradius 3 just looked cool. I love that bubble stage, like where everything like was like the giant bubbles and all that. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I love the music to this game too. Great soundtrack, great shooter. I like the idea of you choose your own upgrades when you need your upgrades. I always do 2 speeds first. That's me on any of those games. I go for 2 speeds first, then primary weapon, then missiles, then option, or whatever it is. That's my thing. Or you can also just do the Konami code. Only you can't do the Konami code in this game because you'll blow up. You have to do LR instead of left, right, left, right. Ha! I love it. Fun game. I'll give it an A. International Superstar Soccer. Now, this is a game that was very popular in Japan that we got here. Not that it mattered. We didn't know this at the time. At least I didn't know this at the time. And although the FIFA games were super popular, this game, in my opinion, I think it plays better than the FIFA games. Have you played this game? I mean, if you're a soccer fan, I'm a casual observer of soccer. Again, it's, they don't have like Premier League and stuff like that, but as far as a soccer game goes, I think it's pretty cool. International Superstar Soccer. You gotta check it out for yourself. I think it's wonderful. I'm still only giving it a C. So after that, a huge build-up. But it's good. It's a really good soccer game. Legend of the Mystical Ninja was a game that won my heart the first time I rented it. There's something about that game where it's like I wasn't familiar with the Goemon character at all before all this, and it just looked fun. I had that kind of overhead little exploration, go in the shops, talk to people, whatever, and then it had the side-scrolling stages that had the platforming going on. It was the perfect game for me, and boy oh boy did I don't remember the password off the top of my head now. There are some NES passwords I still remember off the top of my head, but I used to go play this game and go straight to like level 3, was it? With that had like the fair, like the carnival, and go straight to play like Gradius, or just play like the little funning games and stuff like that too. That was my favorite part of the whole game. And the game itself is great. I thought it had great visuals for the time. I can go on and on and on, and it's one of my favorite games. I wish we would have had the Japanese sequels, because we got the one, and in Japan they had like 5 or 6 of different styles. Of Legend of Mystical Ninja style, there was like 4 other ones or something. There's a lot. There's a lot going on there. It's an S for me all day long. Legend of the Mystical Ninja. It may be a top 5 favorite games of all time for me. Top 10 for sure. Yeah, if you ask me tomorrow, I might switch the games around or whatever, but it's way up there as one of my favorite games of all time. Lethal Enforcers now at home. I didn't know they could do this, because when you played Lethal Enforcers in the arcade, it was like Laserdisc or something, where it's like you actually had like actual captured model people. The people were the graphics, and they digitized them and put them in the game. It plays okay on Super Nintendo as well as Genesis. You do have the Justifier. What was that gun called? The one that actually looks like a handgun kind of. They did have that you could use, but you couldn't use like the Super Steel 6 from what I remember. It was okay though. I'll give it a C. It's okay. Is it fun to play today? Not as much. It's like for nostalgia, maybe a little bit, but it's just not even an on-rail shooter. It's just like a stuck frame, and then you move on to the next frame, then move on to the next frame, But maybe that was the game that started it off. I mean, I remember Mad Dog McCree, and then we had Lethal Enforcers, and then later on, like with Virtua Cop and Time Crisis and all that later. But maybe it all started with Lethal Enforcers. Who knows? So show it some love. It's a C. NBA Give and Go. What an interesting name for an NBA game. It's basketball. Give and Go? What? Well, it's also a clunky basketball game, in my opinion. It could have been a lot better. I'm giving it a C. Don't want to talk about it too much, because it brings up hard memories. No, it doesn't. It's okay. I played it a little bit. I was just like, yeah, there's so much better basketball games out there. Thanks for trying, though. NFL Football, another kind of clunky-ish football game. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's funny, because it's NFL football, but with like the teams and stuff like that. I was hoping for more. There are better football games out there as well. It's okay though, and I'm also going to give that one. Do I give it a D? I'll give it a C. It's just like it's decent. Prince of Persia came out. This one is the classic Prince of Persia game that has been around on computers. They had a version on the NES even, and now it's on Super Nintendo with Super Nintendo graphics. So same game, just the graphics are updated a little bit. It's not bad. It's just Prince of Persia. I'll give it a C. Sparkster is what we got because Genesis got Rocket Knight Adventures, and Sparkster is basically Rocket Knight Adventures, right? It's like, is it a sequel or something? Here, let me look it up again. I'm not gonna look it up. You tell me in the comments. Never mind. I loved Rocket Knight Adventures on the Sega Genesis, and then we got Sparkster. It's like, oh, it's Rocket Knight Adventures. It plays the same character. You can do the same kind of moves where you can slash, you can jump, you can twist, you can hold your button down and kind of fly like with your rocket or whatever. Super fun, super amazing. I wish more people knew about this game because out of all the games that Konami made on the Super Nintendo, for some reason this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and it shouldn't because it's so good. I'm giving it a B. It could have been better, but it's so good. And I don't even know what could have made it better. It's missing something though, I don't know. Like for some reason, everything just made sense on Genesis. Why wouldn't I think the same thing for Super Nintendo? What's it missing? Maybe you tell me. Sunset Riders was another game, loved it in the arcade, and then the Super Nintendo version came out, and it was the arcade version on the Super Nintendo. Love me some Sunset Riders. It was like a slower-paced Wild Wild West Contra, where you have your players, and the different players might have a different style of gun or something like that too, and loved that you can like go in the saloon and get your stuff, or the boss battles and all that. It was just fun to see. Love the soundtrack to this game too. It's a wonderful experience. I'm giving this game an A. Super Castlevania 4 is odd because it is the least like most other Castlevania games as far as the graphics go, as far as the looks go. Now, of course, it's great. I mean, this is like, hey, let's make Castlevania so Super Nintendo-rific that it couldn't be on anything else, and that's exactly what they did. The way your chain kind of hangs, and you can like move the D-pad around to kind of swish it around. I thought that was kind of fun. There's that one stage with the Mode 7 that the whole screen rotates and all that. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. The boss battles, huge bosses in this game. Love me some Super Castlevania 4. It's so funny because it's one of the least like other Castlevania games, but it's also like one of my favorite Castlevania games. I'm giving Super Castlevania 4 an S. I just love everything about this game. Had a couple of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games, including Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time. My goodness, one of the best. One of the absolute best. One of the best beat 'em ups on the Super Nintendo. I loved what you can take the Foot Clan and throw them through the camera. I thought that was super fun. It was always fun to see with the Turtles games who the bosses were going to be, especially if you're a fan of the cartoon. I watched it mostly of the cartoon. I wasn't as familiar with like the comics and stuff like that, but I love the cartoon series. So everything I know about Ninja Turtles was basically from the cartoon series. It was just so fun to see it. I love the music and I love everything about it. Yeah, I love some of the options on there too, because arcade style, if you just hold the left or right button, you'll eventually start into a run. It's like, no, I want to control that. I want to be able to double tap and turn it into a dash or whatever. I play as Raphael every time. That's my guy in both of the things. I'm giving it an S. It's so good. We also had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter, or Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. So in the UK, instead of saying TMNT, do you say TMHT? I don't know if I could get used to that. You wouldn't even say TMHT, you'd say TMHT, right? Well, either way you look at it, out of the 3 Tournament Fighters games, there's one for NES, one for Genesis, one for Super Nintendo. To me, hands down, the Super Nintendo is the best one, for sure. You can play as the different characters. I thought it was a decent fighter. It wasn't the best 2D fighting game, but you may as well make a Turtles game and turn it into a fighter. I'll give it a B. It's pretty good. It's alright. Couple of Tiny Toon Adventures games as well. We had Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster Busts Loose. This is your platformer. There's a whole lot of dashing and running and jumping in this game, more than anything. Yeah, you can bop on the enemies' heads and stuff like that too, but it's a decent platformer. It's a decent action game. It's okay. I'm giving it a B. Man, I was hoping for more of, because Tiny Toon Adventures for the NES is one of the best platformers on the entire NES of any platformer. It's eyelash away from Mario 3 as far as I'm concerned, as far as great platformers on the NES. But on the Super Nintendo, I don't know if they're just taking a risk or it's like, oh, let's just make it cartoony and do this thing. They can do whatever they want. Still plays pretty good. I'll give it a B. We also had Tiny Toon Adventures Wacky Sports Challenge, which was more of a collection of mini games. You can play as Buster or Babs or Dizzy or Plucky was the other character I think you can play as. And then it just turns into a 4-player. There's one of them that you have to like work out. You have to like lift weights or something like that. My favorite one, because to me, the Super Nintendo, it's all about where you're going to use Mode 7. Show me the Mode 7. And there's a bungee jump on there. So like when you bungee jump, the screen, like the pilot wing style, the whole area kind of comes close. You have to like, grab your stuff and then, the thing, you wings you back. I'll give it a B because it's kind of worth checking out. Much better as a 2-player simultaneous game, but as a 1-player experience, it's okay. It's worth looking at like once or twice, but it's almost like, single-player experience, I'd give it a C. 2-player experience, I'd give it a B. But let's call it a B because Yes. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. This was a game that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I was just like, I love the name of it. It sounds like one of those kind of cheesy, horror-esque type of movies from the day that were like more comedy than horror, but just kind of weird sci-fi style. It's the kind of thing that you would see like on MST3K. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. The idea that you're going around with your score gun or whatever, 2 players simultaneous again, and collecting the your neighbors, like the baby, like the teacher, like the dude in the inner tube and stuff like that too. Oh man. How fun is that game? It does get, in my opinion, kind of monotonous after a while, but as a 2-player game, I think it's also worth checking out. Not quite an S, but I would give it a high A. I think it's really, really fun. And I've done videos just like this for Capcom, for Square, for Enix, and so many more, and I've covered just about every NES company you can think of as well. So binge all of these in the meantime. We'll do more of these videos coming up right quick. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you super soon, I promise.